for watching tonight's movie presentation, 16 Candles. Stay tuned and party with the king of late-night cool on the Arsenio Hall Show. Tonight at 10:35 here on Receptive Channel 9.
Good evening, I'm Rod Graham.
And I'm Heather Harden. Coming up next on Primetime News.
As many as 15 people may have been killed and dismembered at the home of a Milwaukee man.
In other news, meet one of the youngest athletes competing in the Special Olympics.
CBS buys a local television station. I'm Kevin Burns in Minneapolis. I'll have that story.
And the war may be over, but Americans are still dying in the Middle East.
These stories and more.
Coming up next on Primetime News.
Aha! So that's what happened to Dad's Kraft-Free singles.
What free singles?
The fat-free kind. Helps Dad watch his fat and cholesterol.
Haven't seen them. Besides, we like them.
Sorry, Campers. But these are new. See? Kraft-Free means fat-free. For Dad. Aha! Oh, we'll save him some. Any bread in this?
Kraft-Free singles. Flavor like that without the fat.
I put it on.
You put it on. What put it on?
Introducing Off Skin-tastic, a new repellent from the makers of Off.
I don't think I've got it on.
You've got it on.
Well, I've got it on.
Off Skin-tastic keeps bugs from biting and feels great.
Doesn't feel like I've got anything on.
You've got it on. Well, I've got it on.
Off Skin-tastic even smells good.
Are you sure I've got it on?
Are you being chewed alive by mosquitoes?
No.
Then you've got it on.
New Off Skin-tastic feels so good, you'll forget you've got it on.
Well, I've got it on.
They're tough, determined, and wear frilly aprons. They're the Oatmeal Raisin Crisp Mom Patrol.
First drop, Marbella.
Their mission, introduce you to the great taste of Oatmeal Raisin Crisp.
Sound off!
It's got almond raisins too, crunchy, sweet, and good for you.
Showtime!
Yes, it's oatmeal made your way. Crispy and delicious. The Mom Patrol.
I'd hate to drop in without phoning first.
Coming soon to your town.
Tonight on Primetime News, a real-life house of horrors is discovered in Milwaukee. The body parts of as many as 15 people are found inside. This is our top story for Tuesday, July 23rd.
From KMSP Television, America's #1 independent station, this is Primetime News with Rod Grams, Heather Harden, meteorologist Joe Dandria, Perry Williams on sports, and the entire award-winning Primetime News team.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. Police in Milwaukee have a man in custody after they found body parts of at least 15 people in his apartment.
The suspect is a 31-year-old male named Jeffrey Dahmer. He was serving 5-year probation from jail after being convicted of sexual assault and enticing a 13-year-old boy.
Police say they found human heads inside his refrigerator, and as Charles Zewe reports, they may have a suspect, but authorities are still baffled over the motive.
Boxes, an acid-filled barrel, and a refrigerator with 3 skulls inside were removed from the fly-infested apartment of a 31-year-old former chocolate factory worker identified unofficially by neighbors as Jeff. The suspect was taken into custody after a handcuffed man ran from the building, claiming he was threatened with a knife.
From our investigation, we feel that this individual strongly is involved in other homicides.
Neighbors in the crime-plagued area who said they noticed a strong smell coming from the apartment had their worst fears confirmed.
And the next thing I know, I heard the police open the refrigerator door, and they said it was a dead body in there.
Investigators speculate up to 15 people may have been killed.
The investigation is still very dynamic. We don't know whether this individual acted by himself or in consort with other individuals.
Authorities would not say how many bodies are involved, but said victims were adults of mixed races.
For the most part, most of the victims that at least we're reviewing are male.
In addition to the human remains, authorities say they found a dresser drawer brimming with photographs of mutilated bodies. Investigators said the arrested man was on probation for second-degree sexual assault and had a conviction for enticing a child for immoral purposes. The Milwaukee DA is asking for the public's help.
So it's very important that people that may have information step forward, particularly persons who perhaps where an attempt was made to handcuff them, who then escaped.
Among the curious gathered outside the apartment was a couple looking for a missing 19-year-old brother, who they said vanished after leaving to have a key made.
He left a paycheck at work, so he wouldn't do nothing like that.
Even residents who noticed an odor coming from the apartment said the man who lived inside was unassuming.
He was quiet. He was quiet. He was by himself most of the time. He was never no trouble, never bothered anyone.
But behind that meek mask, police think a mass killer may have been at work. Charles Zewe, CNN reporting.
Authorities tonight say none of the victims have been identified. The suspect's father had reportedly also written a letter in 1982 to a probation judge hoping his son could get some sort of psychiatric help. Also, besides the charge of child enticement, police say the man was arrested in 1982 at the Wisconsin State Fair for exposing himself.
A St. Cloud man will have to be extradited to face charges of murder. 38-year-old Dale Steinbuck today was charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder for the deaths of his wife and 2 daughters. Steinbuck has been in custody in Wisconsin since last Wednesday when he was picked up on a DWI charge. Police say a warrant for his extradition has to be signed by Governor Carlson and then approved by Wisconsin's governor. They say the paperwork should not take too long. Steinbuck could be returned to Minnesota as early as this Friday. 2 boys in Wisconsin are waiting for a decision of a juvenile hearing involving the death yesterday of a New Brighton man. 56-year-old Maynard Bloomer was killed when a rock thrown from a freeway overpass crashed through the windshield of his motorhome, striking him in the chest. The boys, ages 15 and 16, were arrested last night and are being held at a regional detention center. The juvenile hearing today is to determine whether they should be tried as adults and what charges could be filed against them. A 3rd juvenile was also arrested last night and questioned by authorities, but he has been released.
Charges have been filed against a paroled rapist for allegedly attacking a 74-year-old woman in South Minneapolis. 30-year-old Gregory Larson has been charged with 1 count of burglary and 2 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct in connection with an incident over the weekend. Larson allegedly broke into the home of Hilda Mayer and tried to rape her. The suspect fled the home after a struggle, dropping his wallet in the process. He was arrested on Sunday. Larson was released from prison in June after serving time for burglary and rape. Tonight he is being held on $150,000 bail, and if convicted, he faces up to 70 years in prison.
Months of rumors and speculation ended today with the announcement of the sale of Midwest Communications, the parent company of WCCO television. CBS has agreed to pay nearly $200 million for several radio and television stations, ending a family-owned tradition that began in 1949. Tonight, Kevin Burns reports how the sale came about and what it could mean to station employees and viewers.
Negotiations for the sale of Midwest have been going on behind the scenes for months. Today's announcement surprises few people, but worries many.
I don't anticipate that there will be any changes in the way or the type or the mix of programming at WCCO television and radio, but that's really a decision that's up to the people that are here.
CBS will issue $50 million in stock and assume approximately $150 million in Midwest debt in exchange for the broadcast properties. They include a TV station in Alexandria, a TV, AM, and FM radio stations in the Twin Cities, and a TV station in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
CBS has the financial resources which are needed to meet the needs of the future. There is no other company in the country that would be more ideal for an association with us than CBS.
Executives are promising to maintain the status quo, but employees may not be convinced. CBS has recently gone through months of budget cutting and layoffs in its television news division, and some worry the axe has not fallen for the final time.
I hope that Peter Wand is being honest and saying he'd like to keep things the way they are. And I know, and he said that was a challenge, and I hope that they can rise to the challenge.
That challenge includes maintaining WCCO's #1 rating in total audience, and specifically in news, an area becoming more and more expensive and competitive each day.
The things that the viewers remember and recognize about us are the same things that CBS are interested in keeping and in us keeping. And so for that reason, I think that, and I really believe that to the viewer's eye, there will be the same CCO that they know and that many of them have watched for years.
The sale of Midwest Communications won't be finalized for another 6 months or so. Still, employees say it's better to have to wait and know something's going to happen than simply be forced to wait. With photographer Ed Shepard, Kevin Burns, Primetime News in Minneapolis.
The Special Olympics is in its third day of competition, and hundreds of events have already taken place. Tonight in our continuing coverage, Susan Austin takes a look at one of the youngest athletes.
Okay, guys, I'm going to say on your mark, set, and then I'll shoot the gun. Then you start, okay? Right away.
8-year-old Leopold Sankara finished last in both of his events, the 50-meter dash and the 400-meter race walk. But that didn't seem to matter. He was still the center of attention. He traveled thousands of miles from West Africa to be here, and his delegate host, Tanya, says he's not at all homesick.
When he wants to talk, he talks a lot, and he really likes to have a good time. He wanted to go to the dance last night and dance with some little girls. Today he's kind of mad because he didn't get a chance to do that, so he's upset with everyone. He didn't go to the dance? We went, but it was too late.
Leopold and another young girl are the only athletes representing the country of Burkina Faso, which is just beginning to get involved in the Special Olympics. The respect and encouragement given to the athletes here is unfortunately not a common thing in third world countries.
There's certainly some areas that certainly look at it that there's something wrong with them, there's something wrong with me, we're going to hide them, we're going to do it. Institutionalized, I didn't see too much of that. Now, that's not saying that there wouldn't be some institutions for them, but I think mostly they're in the families, and they're just kept in the background.
Great job!
The motto here is let me win, but if not, let me be brave in the attempt. Susanna Ferriar of Argentina did her best to be brave as she was carried off the field with a scraped knee and a twisted ankle.
What we're seeing are scrapes and sprains, that type of thing mostly. We'll see a little rush of them coming in right after an event, but they handle it real well. Most of them come in with their medals, and they show you your medals, and they're real proud of that.
The pride in what they have accomplished is always revealed during the awards ceremony. There are never any losers. Every athlete takes home a ribbon or a medal, because just being here makes every one of them a winner. With photographer Ken Udoybach, Susan Austin, Primetime News. He's so little. Bless his heart. Coming all the way over here.
Great competitor, great competitor. Coming up next in World News, Iraq may get a break from the U.S.
And the Soviet people can't see eye to eye when it comes to eliminating communism. The story when we return.
This is Maximum Hoops presented by LA Gear.
Defying the odds in a game traditionally dominated by big men, this diminutive guard scored almost 18,000 points in his 13-year NBA career. Name him.
Everything else is just hot air.
5'9" Calvin Murphy averaged 17.9 points per game in his career on his way to 17,949 total points. Murphy made a big name for himself as one of the NBA's smallest players with the most points among those under 6 feet tall.
Now that it's hot, really hot, doesn't a clear, delicious, icy cold glass of Glenwood Inglewood natural spring water sound good? Really good? No, it even sounds better. Glenwood Inglewood's 3-Freeze Summer Glove. Get 15 gallons of chemical-free, healthful Glenwood spring water, cooler rental for 1 month, and setup and delivery all free. Call this number now and put a freeze on the heat with Glenwood Inglewood's 3-Freeze. Get it while it's hot.
When you have a corn, the bigger it gets, the smaller your shoe feels, and that can be extremely painful. Fortunately, Dr. Scholl's corn removers relieve painful corns fast. Clinically proven, safe, and effective. First, they cushion the pain. Then they dissolve the corn within 5 applications or less. Guaranteed. So buy Dr. Scholl's corn removers and get back into things.
Very clear that Saddam Hussein has not
complied with the UN resolution, so we'll see what we can do.
Tonight, in our World Report, President Bush is thinking of easing sanctions against Iraq. But will lawmakers in the rest of the world go along with his plan? President Bush is considering a plan that will allow Iraq to sell oil so that it can buy food and medicine.
Bush has always said that his argument is with Saddam Hussein only and doesn't want to see innocent people suffer from lack of nutrition and health care.
Charles Bierbauer has more from the White House.
The pipelines from Iraq have been turned off since the invasion of Kuwait. But the U.S. and its allies are contemplating allowing Iraq to sell some oil, perhaps on a one-time basis, to meet the needs of the Iraqi people. There is some hesitation.
Whatever decision we make, we want to ensure that there are appropriate safeguards in place to ensure that the food reaches vulnerable populations.
President Bush is caught between his enormous distrust and distaste for Saddam Hussein and increasing reports that the Iraqi people are suffering.
The United States is not going to see the suffering of innocent women and children there, and there's all kinds of mechanisms available for him to take care of it. His own resources inside the country, possible release of resources outside the country, and a matter that's being discussed at the United Nations.
Bush discussed the situation with the head of the UN Commission dealing with Iraq, Prince Sidruddin Aga Khan. The UN official wants to see Iraq start paying for the food and medicine which are permitted under sanctions. U.S. sources say one plan considered, but so far not passed on to President Bush, would create an escrow fund from the Iraqi oil sales. 30% of those revenues would go to reparations in Kuwait, a portion to the cost of inspecting Iraq's nuclear facilities, and the rest to humanitarian needs. U.S. officials say they want a full accounting of Iraq's financial situation before making any decision on oil sales. They're also still waiting for a full accounting of Iraq's weapons program.
They are not fully forthcoming on the extent and purpose of their nuclear weapons program. They continue to insist that their nuclear weapons program is for peaceful purposes. That's ludicrous.
Iraq is supposed to provide that information by July 25th. President Bush has hinted he's prepared to use force to deal with the Iraqi nuclear sites if necessary. But officials say July 25th is more a date than a deadline. Meanwhile, the U.S. is strongly opposed to lifting any sanctions against Iraq. Charles Bierbauer, CNN, the White House.
An accidental explosion in Kuwait killed 3 American soldiers. The blast happened as the troops were securing an ammo dump where there had been a fire and explosion earlier this month. 53 American and 6 British soldiers were hurt in that blast. The cause of today's explosion is not known, but military officials in Saudi Arabia have ruled out sabotage or hostile action. Officials aren't ruling out the possibility of peace talks between Jews and Arabs. In fact, Secretary of State James Baker's chances are better than ever those talks will take place. Baker made that comment as he met with a group of foreign ministers from Southeast Asian nations. The secretary just finished 2 days of talks with Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir. Baker's hoping to find out soon whether Israel has agreed to a U.S. peace plan. Several Arab nations have endorsed that plan and are also waiting for Israel's answer. Israel's early response to the talks appear positive. Prime Minister Shamir says he hopes to sit down with his Arab neighbors within a month or two. Shamir claims a big reason for the optimism is Syria's change of attitude toward Israel. He claims it's as dramatic a change as Egypt displayed in 1977 that led to that Arab nation's unprecedented truce with Israel.
Well, there is no truce between Yugoslav federal troops and Croatian territorial guards. They have been firing shots at each other for several days as pockets of ethnic fighting erupt in that republic. Croatia's president blames Serbia for the violence. At least 20 people are dead and dozens wounded in fighting this week between Croats, Serbs, and the Yugoslavian army. Croatia's president is telling the Yugoslav troops to get out of the republic, and he's warning his people to prepare for war. People in the Soviet Union may soon be getting ready for religious freedom, private property, and no more Marxism.
A radical Soviet newspaper claims those things are among the plans of President Mikhail Gorbachev as he develops a new platform for the Communist Party.
Eileen O'Connor reports.
Mikhail Gorbachev's new draft policy program for the Communist Party is out on the streets, published 2 days before a major meeting of communist leaders. The draft calls for a radical liberalization of party politics, affirming rights to private property, guaranteeing sovereignty to the republic, defending businessmen, and abandoning Marxist ideology. And that is causing a lot of talk. From the streets, to the conference halls. The Russian Communist Party leaders were quick to comment, denouncing the program as unconstitutional.
Most of the ideas with which Gorbachev has come up in this platform are something that people in the Communist Party, the hardliners, the conservatives, will never agree with.
Artyom Borovic is editor of a new liberal political weekly. He left the Communist Party last year. Borovic thinks this is Gorbachev's last-ditch effort to save the party.
He might convince them that this is the only way for the Communist Party to survive, that the situation in the world has changed, that the situation in the country has changed. And if the Communist Party wants to survive, it has to change. And I think this is what they're doing. They might not be believing in all these things, but they're doing it just to survive.
With new elections likely in the next year, the survival of the party is in the hands of the people. The Communist Party shouldn't even exist, says this man. How can it change for the better? This new program won't help. They're only doing it to preserve their domination, this man proclaims. But after 70 years, the communists still attract a lot of loyalty. I would vote for a communist, says this man. This is the only force that can save us from anarchy. But there should be some changes. The communists have time to think. After all, they still hold most of the power in this country.
Such a radical platform means Communist Party General Secretary and President Mikhail Gorbachev wants to keep his party post, opting instead to force the party into his own centrist position. His opponents may not like it, but they may have no choice but to go along with Gorbachev or lose any popular support. Eileen O'Connor, CNN, Moscow.
When we come back, we focus on weather and the toll that it is taking in some parts of the world.
Stay tuned. We'll return in a moment.
They're built with pride, quality, commitment. For over 65 years, the Ford Twin Cities Assembly Plant has been building America's best-built, best-selling trucks. And now, while supplies last, a limited production run of the special Northland Edition F-150 and Northland Edition Ranger. Built right, here in the Northland, by your friends and neighbors at your Quality One award-winning assembly plant.
Here's the difference in black and white. The Walmart price. It's different.
Because Walmart is different.
Instead of relying on sales events, we watch expenses so we can give you the low price.
On every item, on every shelf, in every aisle.
Always.
It's a promise we make each day. A promise we've kept for 29 years. The Walmart price. It's the difference between other stores and Walmart. The difference between sometimes and always.
In recent years, doctors have discovered a flaw in eggs. They're extremely high in cholesterol, and a diet high in cholesterol and fat can contribute to the risk of heart disease. Nutritionists at Fleischmann's have found a way to overcome this flaw with Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the only one that's 99% real egg with zero cholesterol and zero saturated fat. Next time you love an egg, crack open a carton. Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the great-tasting egg without a flaw.
I mean, being my sister is going to be of absolutely no advantage to you.
Oh, and what a plus it's been so far.
When it comes to family, everything is relative with the Keatons. Watch Family Ties Saturdays at 5 on Channel 9.
An oil spill off the western coast of Australia is no longer considered an environmental threat. The light crude that has been leaking from a crippled tanker is now evaporating, and seaweed is blocking most of it from reaching nature reserves. Well, China's southern coast is being battered by Typhoon Brendan. The storm is bringing heavy rains and high winds to the area. Brendan comes on the heels of Typhoon Amy. That storm recently killed nearly 100 people and injured more than 5,000 others. Harsh weather is also hitting parts of the Korean peninsula. Floodwaters from heavy rains have destroyed homes, knocked down trees, and buried roads under mud. Seoul, South Korea, received over 10 inches of rain this past weekend. Flooding has killed at least 41 people. 13 others are still missing. Thousands of people have also been left homeless.
Cleanup efforts continue today from floodwaters that washed through the southeastern Minnesota town of Stockton over the weekend. Emergency services officials have set initial estimates of damage to homes and businesses at $1 million and damage to crops at another $280,000. Lieutenant Governor Jonelle Deerstadt traveled to Winona County today to survey some of the damage and also authorized the Minnesota National Guard to help in the cleanup. More than 6 inches of rain fell in the area during Sunday's storm. Today honestly felt nothing like July. It was exactly what you said it would be, but it was extremely comfortable. Perfect day.
Brisk winds out of the northwest today.
Some of those days that you kind of wait for in July, though. Beautiful day.
Saw the windsurfers flying across the lakes today. A few thunderstorms have popped up over extreme northern Minnesota. There's actually been some heavy weather reported in northern Koochiching and northwestern St. Louis counties, way up in the northern part of the state. We may see a thunderstorm or a shower tomorrow. There's a slight chance. We'll assess those chances next. Stay with us.
So, you got a new muffler today, huh? You go to the discount place like I did.
I decided quality was just as important as low price, so I went to CarX.
CarX?
They had the exact muffler I needed.
Well, yeah, but
And a
listen...
lifetime guarantee.
Yeah, but...
But how much did it cost?
Yeah.
See for yourself.
That's less than I paid.
Exactly.
Rattle, rattle, thunder, clatter, boom, boom, boom. Don't worry, call the CarX man. Once you crash, you can't stop. You grab 'em. You want 'em. You crush 'em. You crush 'em. You crush 'em. Once you pop, Pringles.
Pringles.
Hi, we're Bert and Bonnie Noterman, your hosts at Lion's Tap.
Home of the famous award-winning hamburgers. The recipe to our success is not only in our hamburgers, but in how we advertise.
We know Consumer's Choice is working for us, and it can work for you, too.
Lion's Tap is famous for the delicious hamburgers.
Consumer's Choice is famous for advertising that works.
So give us a call now.
Remember your 4 food groups.
Now, class, for proper nutrition, we must all learn to eat from the 4 food groups. Repeat it with me. The 4 food groups. Again. The 4 food groups. Again.
Introducing Basic 4 cereal, a delicious blend of grains, fruits, and nuts that with milk gives you the goodness of the 4 food groups, like you've never tasted them before. New Basic 4 cereal.
We have seen the future.
And it tastes great.
Our satellite loop shows that some high-level cirrus clouds are skimming across the southern portion of Minnesota during the day today, as you'll see here as it lapses through. But mostly sunny skies were enjoyed by just about all the state and for much of Wisconsin as well. If you look to the north, though, these are the storms I was talking about a little bit earlier. A huge system at the top of your screen swirling up over Hudson Bay, Canada, does have a few disturbances that are swirling around the periphery of it, and that's what's sparking this thunderstorm activity that pops across southern Manitoba and Ontario during the afternoon hours and then gradually sinks south across the international border into extreme northern Minnesota. International Falls did report a wind gust to up about 44 miles an hour at the airport there. So some heavy weather moving through there. Those storms should die away, but the disturbance that's producing them will continue to sink slowly south, and by tomorrow some cold air will be aloft. There'll be a chance for some scattered storms, some isolated showers basically here in southern Minnesota. Better chance across the northern part of the state. Here's what happened today here in the metro area. Of course, we had lots of bright sunshine, and can you believe it? Our temperature didn't even hit 80. 78 degrees. Felt great. 60 degrees our morning low. Average is now about 84 and 61. Sunrise tomorrow 5:50. Sunset's about 8:49. Typically, this is about the warmest week of the year here in Minnesota. Partly cloudy now and 71 degrees. Our dew point is 51. The relative humidity 49%. A west wind at 9, and the pressure steady 30.05. Many areas have already fallen into the 60s this evening. As a matter of fact, International Falls, where there was some thunderstorm activity earlier, already down to 60. Duluth has 63, 69 at St. Cloud and Eau Claire. A little bit warmer to the south. Des Moines still a very comfortable 72. Pierce, South Dakota has 75. Milwaukee, Wisconsin also reporting 75 at 9 o'clock. Here's the weather map for tonight. We have a high-pressure area that's ridging into southern Minnesota today. The center's still way up over the southern part of Alberta, Canada. It's going to take a couple of days to get here. In the meantime, this little trough will be rotating southward, and as you saw earlier, that did spark those thunderstorms across southern Ontario and southern Manitoba, and as it comes south, we'll see clouds and lots of showers scattered across northeastern Minnesota. They will be more widely scattered, though, here in the southern part of the state. Leading edge of that cooler air, slicing into heat and humidity, and once again, that sparked some very heavy weather. Lots of wind damage reported from northeastern Ohio through parts of upstate New York and Pennsylvania during the afternoon hours. Beginning to settle down there right now, about 1.5 inches of rain reported at Bradford, Pennsylvania. You can see the heavy storms follow that front all the way back into the high plains of the Texas Panhandle and southward into Texas. More heavy weather along the Gulf Coast, some soaking rains there. Tampa, Florida, again reporting about 1.1 1/3 of rain today. High temperatures were sizzling across the southeastern states. Again, lots of records set in the mid-Atlantic region. The nation's capital hit 101, Washington, D.C. That's a record for them for today. 103 in Harrisburg. And on the other coast, too, Portland, Oregon hit 100 degrees. That was enough to set a record high. Look at this beautiful air here in the upper Midwest. Highs in the 70s, and it looks like it's going to stay that way as long as our winds continue to blow out of the northwest. Our weather map for tomorrow showing that trough beginning to sag into the state. Lots of clouds, especially for northeastern Minnesota, where there'll be considerable shower activity, but isolated showers and storms possible anyway over the southern portions of Minnesota. Farther north you go, the more rain you'll see. The stationary front will continue to be very active across the south with showers and thunderstorms from Oklahoma all the way back into Virginia. And again, Florida should be fairly wet. Miami expecting thunderstorms with 91. 89, they're going to dry things up in New York State tomorrow. Still fairly warm there. 82 expected in Chicago. Up in Calgary, Alberta, 85, and Seattle also expecting high about 85 for tomorrow. Here in the upper Midwest, I think we'll see 70s generally for highs, a little bit cooler, near 70 for the far northeast part of the state. Here's our Twin Cities forecast. Tonight, mostly clear, a comfortable night. Lows in the upper 50s. The northwest winds will continue at about 6 to 12 miles an hour. For tomorrow, partly cloudy. Isolated showers will be a possibility, especially during the afternoon. Still a gusty northwest wind at 12 to 22 miles an hour, and highs in the upper 70s. For tomorrow night, partly cloudy. Low temperatures in the middle and upper 50s. Maybe an isolated evening shower. It should die away. And then for Thursday, fair and pleasant, with highs again in the mid-70s. Rod and Heather, it looks like we're in for a modest warm-up as we head into the weekend. Not too hot, though.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe.
There's still much more to come tonight on Primetime News. Find out why the U.S. Air Force's top fighter plane is suffering from stress.
And the doors that are almost closed, that is, at some of the nation's military bases.
But first, tonight's Daily 3 Numbers. Stay with us.
Meet a pair of struggling comics.
I want to learn.
The jokes come easy for him.
If you have a question, your hand has been up as long as I've been here.
For her,
I look like buckwheat.
it's no laughing matter.
I think it's wonderful.
But they've got one chance at stardom.
Do you have a babysitter?
Charles Manson.
Tom Hanks, John Goodman, and Oscar winner Sally Field star in Punchline. Wednesday night at 7 on Receptive Channel 9.
What can you get at Subway?
Well, you can get a roasty sub, a tuna sub, or ham and cheese, a seafood sub, or any one of Subway's tasty recipes. And you can get a lot of crispy fixes piled on as you please on any given number of our salads, subs, or BFTs. And every single sub we make has crispy vegetables galore and fresh delicious bread. We make in every single Subway store, and maybe like 100 ways to have them made, or maybe more. So come and get a sub today, 'cause here's what you can get one for.
Subway, for just $1.69, you can get a real mouthful.
An auto body shop is not the kind of place you plan to go. But let me say this. When I need my car repaired, there's only one place I'd think about taking it. Abra Auto Body. There's a simple reason. They care about my car and me.
At Abra Auto Body, we do care about you. And that's why we'll guarantee all body and structural repairs with a lifetime guarantee. Why? Because making you happy is good business.
I love my car, and I love Abra.
When upper management does not indicate a legitimate concern or care for their employees, how can they expect the employee to have that type of legitimate concern or caring for the customer? Leadership starts at the top. As a famous haberdasher said 40 or 50 years ago, the buck stops here. At the Men's Warehouse, we like to say it a little differently. I guarantee it.
Saturday night at 10:35, tune into the funniest show in Minnesota. It's Comedy Gallery, the TV show. Laugh along with Scott Hansen, his comic partners in crime, and a wild and crazy studio audience. Saturday night at 10:35 here on Receptive Channel 9.
Tonight in national news, the nation's top fighter jet is having major problems, and repairs are expected to cost over $250 million.
Some of that money may come from closing of military bases. Today, a House subcommittee approves a preliminary list scrapping dozens of military installations, and that is where we begin tonight.
Congress has taken action, and for those working to prevent the closings of military bases, well, the list was unwelcome news.
Skip Loescher reports.
This is the beginning of the last stand for congressmen trying to prevent a base in their state from closing.
The Navy's base closure review process was a sham from the start.
With the size of the active duty U.S. military slated to shrink by 500,000 during the next 5 years, logic dictates fewer bases will be needed, and fewer bases will mean less cost. The Pentagon claims closing the 34 bases will save more than $1.5 billion a year. But base closings mean the loss of jobs for the 82,000 members of the military and 38,000 civilians who work on the bases. Thousands of other civilians whose employers or businesses depend on them for their economic existence will also be hurt.
We're not allowed to close anything overseas. The only way we seem to be able to close overseas bases is to have a volcano go off.
Time is running out for Congress to accept or reject the base closings, and the overwhelming majority of the House Armed Services Subcommittee sided with James Corter, the chairman of the Base Closure Commission.
I think the process worked well. We are sensitive to the base closure problem. We know it's a tough problem, and we're committed to working with the communities.
While arguments to close bases will not ease the pain for those whose lives will be turned upside down, President Bush has endorsed the action. And now so is the House Armed Services Subcommittee, voting 17-2 to close down the 34 U.S. military bases. It's the first congressional vote on the subject, but most here believe the final outcome will be the same. Skip Loescher, CNN, Washington.
Our other top national story, the U.S. Air Force is confirming problems with the F-16 fighter jet. The department says cracks have been found in the jet's wings. Carl Rochelle reports.
The F-16 was the workhorse of Operation Desert Storm. It flew thousands of missions, dropping bombs on Iraqi targets with few, if any, problems. Now the Air Force says the F-16 has developed cracks in its wings and in other parts of the plane. The Pentagon says that doesn't mean it's unsafe.
It's not like wings have fallen off here or anything like that. Cracks obviously are very serious in an aircraft, and the Air Force has discovered that as a result of modifications that have been made to the airplane, additional stuff that's been put in the plane, that puts additional stress on the plane, and that has led in some cases to cracks.
It is the multi-mission capability of the F-16 that contributed to its problems. More hardware, bombs, missiles, and electronic equipment has been hung from it than had originally been intended. And the Pentagon says the F-16 has been flown more aggressively than its designers had anticipated. The plane's maker, General Dynamics, says there is nothing wrong with the F-16 that is not findable and fixable. They described the cracks as small and not a danger to flight. The Air Force says it continues to inspect the planes and repair the cracks when they are discovered. The Pentagon says it will cost the government up to $250 million to fix the 1,600 F-16s in the U.S. inventory. It is not strictly a problem for the United States. F-16s have been sold to and are operating in the air forces of 17 countries. Cracks in aircraft are always serious. Undetected, they can lead to structural failure and cause a crash. But aviation experts say cracks in high-performance military jets are not unusual, are almost always repairable, but are never cheap. Carl Rochelle, CNN, Washington.
Engineers at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida are busy getting the shuttle Atlantis ready for tomorrow. The launch is set for 10 a.m., and forecasters are calling for good weather for tomorrow's launch. In news from Capitol Hill, Congress is considering a bill called the Pornography Victims Compensation Act of 1991. The measure allows victims of sexual crimes and their families to sue the producers, distributors, exhibitors, and sellers of obscene and child pornographic materials.
This important legislation recognizes that obscenity and child pornography can incite violent acts, and that when it does incite such acts, the producers of it should be held liable. By considering this legislation, the committee has taken a step toward recognizing that obscenity and child pornography promote violence against women and children. Without a doubt, this material often promotes rape, torture, and murder.
In order to recover damages under the bill, the plaintiff must prove the material in question is not protected by the First Amendment and that it was a direct motivating factor in the sex crime.
The prosecutor in the William Kennedy Smith sexual assault trial says the defendant has assaulted women before. She says Smith raped one woman in 1988 and tried to rape two others in 1983 and 1988. None of those women ever filed a complaint. Smith's uncle, Senator Ted Kennedy, says he's confident his nephew will be absolved.
Well, I continue to believe that when the case is finally decided that Willie will be innocent.
Are you surprised by the latest?
Well, I really haven't got any other comments. Thank you.
Smith goes on trial August 5th for allegedly raping a woman at the Kennedy family estate in Palm Beach, Florida, over the weekend.
In Detroit, a private Lear jet reportedly carrying parts for the Chrysler Corporation crashed into a cemetery. 3 people, including the pilot and co-pilot, were killed. The plane went down shortly after takeoff from Detroit City Airport last night. 3 people also died in a plane crash in California. A private twin-engine plane headed for Van Nuys Airport crashed into a horse barn in Granada Hills. The incident happened just moments after the pilot had reported engine trouble.
In trade news, President Bush predicts he will eventually get his way on trade benefits for China. That's because the U.S. Senate failed to get enough votes to override a promised veto. Just a few hours ago, lawmakers voted to impose human rights and other conditions on China's U.S. trade next year. Mr. Bush, however, wants to extend China's most favored nation trade status unconditionally.
And coming up just ahead, a complete report of the day's financial news on Tonight in Business.
And the ups and downs of one Minnesota-based medical company. The story when Primetime News continues.
My dad had ulcers, so when my stomach started acting up, I was afraid to go to the doctor. But finally, I went. Was I relieved when my doctor said Mylanta? He said it was indigestion, not an ulcer, and my kind of indigestion called for a strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Now available in cherry and cool mint cream flavors.
You can't say no to an offer this big.
Oh, no?
Oh, yes. It's Hyundai. Yes, Hyundai clearance time. With big rebates on every new Sonata D6. It's faster than Taurus or Maxima SE.
Can the rebate be our down payment?
Yes, sir. You'll take our trade-in, too? Yes, ma'am.
Will the Sonata seat 5?
Oh, yes. It's bigger inside than Camry or Accord. Mid-size comfort at a compact price.
Sonata is roomy, powerful, and about 12.5. Take a test drive at your Hyundai dealer now.
It's Hyundai clearance time. Well, is there still time if we hurry?
Yes. So many families now love Quaker Oat squares. Think how a flake feels. You okay?
Oh, I'm so flat and frail, not square like you.
Quaker Oat squares are more than just square. We're toasted whole grain oats sprinkled with brown sugar.
You're sprinkled. I'm wrinkled.
And Quaker Oat squares stay crunchy in milk. Come on in.
You can't. Once milk touches me, I'm a soggy sight.
I'll try not to splash. Quaker Oat squares. You'll love them from Square One.
On the next MASH,
we're due for a bug out.
The rumor spreads that the unit is about to retreat from a communist assault.
A battalion of North Koreans is headed this way.
And the rumor grows.
An entire battalion of Chinese paratroopers is supposed to drop in on us within a few hours.
And grows.
Chinese paratroopers and tanks coming, 4 divisions.
Is the enemy really about to attack? Find out on the next MASH.
Tuesday night at 10 on Receptive Channel 9.
Tonight in business, another big contraction in the computer industry. Unisys said it is downsizing by 10,000 jobs, 6,000 by the end of the year. Product offerings will also be narrowed in the restructuring as accountants tally up a quarterly loss of more than $1 billion. On the flip side, Cray Computer of Colorado Springs, an offshoot of Cray Research, is issuing 4.5 million shares of common stock. The company is developing the Cray 3 computer system. In national stocks, the day's gainers were American Express, Monsanto, and Newmont Mining. The losers were Albertsons, Circus, and ITT. In regional stocks, the gainers were Airtran, Fuller, and Dairy Queen. The losers were ADC, Hutchinson Tech, and Northwestern National Life. The Dow Jones dropped today almost 30 points, drops below that 3,000 mark again, closing at 2983. Trading was moderate, however, at 160 million shares. It is a small Twin Cities-based company that has been on some of the hottest lists in the country for several years. Why? Well, for one, Business Week magazine has called it one of the fastest-growing small companies in the country. Biomedical Dynamics is catching attention, even though it's been around for more than 10 years. Biomedical Dynamics got off to a slow start in 1980, but when it introduced this product, a disposable infuser, its sales took off. The cuff surrounds a bag of fluid and infuses it at a steady pace into the body. At a cost of only $14, 3,000 hospitals across the country are now using it, finding it more reliable and sanitary than the old reusable units like these. Last year, the company introduced the disposable blood pressure cuff in several sizes, including this one for infants. Because sales of these products are going so well, it has been called one of the hottest small growth companies in the country.
As long as we keep putting each next successive year of growth on the table with good growth figures, we can stay on that list. I think we're still small enough that we can get 40 and 50% growth a year for another 3 or 4 years.
It is catching the attention of aggressive investors who feel there is strong potential for this medical stock.
Here's a company that's been around for 10 years. As I'd indicated, over the last 5 years, they've really started to demonstrate some growth. And in the first quarter of this year, their sales increased 27%. That's a very nice rate of growth.
And it is developing other products, an automatic infuser that will do away with the bulb, and products for use in endoscopy. All of the products are made in their factory in Burnsville. And recently, their infusible attracted the attention of the space program.
It's exciting, and it, I think, gives us an added measure of recognition and pride, and that translates into the clinical arena as well. Commercially, though, we might expect to send NASA 1 or 2 units.
Obviously, it's the prestige, not the size of the sale. And by the way, Biomedical Dynamics says it will not charge NASA the $14 for the few it might use. The company anticipates that the infusible will be used on several space missions, including the space station Freedom. It is scheduled to go up in 1992 on the joint NASA-European Space Agency German flight. And true to form, they reported their second quarter sales results today, up 30% as they predicted.
All right.
The company's doing well.
Thank you, Heather. Also in business news tonight, several Japanese companies are being criticized for the way they treat American employees. Lawmakers heard testimony today from former employees of an ad agency in New York owned by the Japanese. The U.S. says it welcomes Japanese investment, but it will not tolerate the violation of its anti-discrimination laws.
There were 2 standards at the agency. One was for Japanese and the other for Americans. It was actually the stated policy of Japanese management that they could not treat the 2 groups alike. And the difference was patent in the way the 2 groups were treated. Japanese employees received material benefits not accorded to Americans.
Victims are urging more bite to existing equal opportunity laws to prevent abuse by overseas employers.
Coming up next in sports, the Twins tangle with the Tigers.
And another NFL team has training camp within a few hours of the Twin Cities. Perry Williams is next with the story.
It's pretty rough up there today. It's always something. Weather, traffic. This means we've got to be in control every minute. Since we have the Honeywell control systems help take care of the navigating. Besides shorter flight times and fuel savings, now we can really focus on flying. Anything that helps lighten our workload is a luxury. It's a necessity.
When people depend on you, depend on Honeywell.
Did you know the 91 Chevrolet full-size pickup is America's #1 selling truck? And right now at your Heartland Chevrolet Geo dealers, you can get more and save up to $2,000. 91 Chevy Silverado. Air conditioning, AM/FM stereo cassette, tilt wheels, speed control, Silverado trim, and much more. All this option package equipment saves you up to $2,000 in discounts and cash back when you buy now. At your Heartland Chevrolet Geo dealers, America's #1 selling truck and up to $2,000 savings. Hurry.
What do you get in Midas' $69 or $89 basic brake service? Great value and a job done right. Nobody beats Midas. Nobody.
The Twins and pitcher Jack Morris are struck down tonight in Detroit. Make that. Morris, who was injured in the All-Star game earlier this month, was on the mound in the second inning when Milt Kyler hits a shot up the middle off the forearm of Morris. He was safe at first with Kyler, but that was the end for Jack. Taken to the hospital for x-rays. Results just announced. They were negative. He's on a day-to-day basis, replaced by Alan Anderson, who in the fourth inning gives up a 3-run homer to Cecil Fielder. He also had a 2-run shot in the first inning. The Tigers win the first game of the series, the final 6-3 tonight. They'll play again tomorrow night. Other baseball scores, Seattle leading the Yankees in New York. California up in Baltimore in the ninth. Oakland has taken a 7-6 lead in the ninth over Cleveland. They're tied up in Chicago. Kansas City 8-1 over Milwaukee in the sixth, and there you see Texas winning Boston, also a six-inning score. Now, in the National League, Pittsburgh is bombing Atlanta. The Cubs beating Cincinnati 5-2. They're in the eighth. St. Louis up on Houston. No score out of San Diego. It was the second day of the Vikings training camp at Mankato State. Among the holdouts, of course, the quarterback Rich Gannon, defensive end Chris Dolman. Vikings have 2 practices a day with a passing scrimmage all set for Sunday afternoon. The state of Wisconsin now has 4 teams in training camps: the Packers, Bears, Saints, and today the Kansas City Chiefs made it a quartet. The University of Wisconsin at River Falls is the new training home of the Chiefs, moving there because the weather's cooler than back in Kansas City. Plus, the facilities and hospitality are also most accommodating. The team might be new to these parts, but it's not the case for head coach Marty Schottenheimer, now in his 3rd year running the club.
Our players, virtually to a man, are very, very good workers. They have adopted our philosophy of preparation and hard work, and that's been evident not only during the practice sessions here, but through our off-season program. And it becomes, quite honestly, a little easier to get things done because they know exactly what they're trying to do. And so the opportunities for us to do better in 1991 are, we think, evident. Of course, we still have to go do those things, but thus far I've been very, very pleased with the work here in camp.
The Chiefs are hoping what they work on and practice here in their new training home in western Wisconsin will eventually pay off with a championship. Last season, led by a crushing defense and a bruising running attack, they made the playoffs for only the 2nd time since 1971. But that appearance ended with a 17-16 first-round playoff loss at Miami. A last-chance 52-yard field goal attempt to beat the Dolphins failed. The season was over. But now a new one on the horizon, and the Chiefs, who play in the AFC West, may have finally put together the ingredients for a championship race.
I really think we got some quality people here, from the management to the owner to the equipment manager. I think that's what a great team is built upon, is great people. And so, I think that is the biggest guideline that I can tell you, is that we've really got some fine individuals on this staff.
Well, the Chiefs and the Vikings will square off in a scrimmage or a practice session that will be on the 31st of this month. The Tour de France cycling race had its 17th stage today, an 80-mile trek in the mountains, but now the race is uphill for the 2-time defending champion Greg LeMond. He has fallen back now more than 6.5 minutes behind the leader, Miguel Indurain of Spain, who has taken a big step toward winning the overall championship. Another big day, another full day of action at the International Special Olympic Games going on in the Twin Cities. And that means another day for the thousands of volunteers giving their time to make the games a success, including a group from Channel 9 helping out the softball venue. Those games being played in Burnsville and running all week. Some great softball going on at Burnsville International Special Olympic Games. If horses are more your style, check out the equestrian events being held at the Coliseum and the State Fairgrounds in St. Paul. They'll be trotting along this week as well, wrapping up Friday morning. And in track, a talented Minnesota runner is also competing this week.
Nice job.
There will be plenty of memories on the athletics portion of the International Special Olympics this week, and that probably means more highlights in the athletic career of Adam Stuffy, the 21-year-old from Red Wing, Minnesota. The 800-meter run, just one of his specialties. He's a longtime participant in Special Olympics, including swimming, basketball, and skiing, but he excels in track events. Now it's the time, though, to make new friends, too, for a person already blessed with many.
I'm just happy because I made it all the way through and I trained hard, and I'm just fortunate to be here, and I'm happy. Hope my parents and my dad and all my grandma and my grandparents can make it, and hope all my friends can make it.
Maybe make some new friends from all over the world, too.
Yeah, I made a few new friends, and I can't wait until I switch pens and meet new people from different states. Kind of happy to see them.
He was involved in the torch run for the Olympic Festival. He was on the high school swim team when he was a senior. So he's built.
I imagine with the international games, that's something really he can look forward to. You all can.
Oh, it's he and his family and everybody that knows him. Yeah, we've ever since he first was nominated and selected, everybody's been really excited.
And in Lake Phelan this afternoon in St. Paul, the cycling competition was rolling along as well. And what a beautiful day for all the spectators and the participants who compete in this event. And I had the honor of giving out the medals at the cycling today, all going on in Lake Phelan. And our special Olympic fact tonight brought to you by me. More than 250,000 meals will be served to the participants of the Special Olympic Games this week. But it really was a fun time giving out the medals, and what a great job they all did, and the volunteers as well. And
I have a nice assignment like that coming up, too, later this week, one of the events. Yeah.
Do you know where you're going to be yet?
Well, I think volleyball, but we haven't confirmed yet.
That's right. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for you.
Okay. Thanks, Perry. When we return, cop cars get cool.
The story when we come back.
Looks like we lost them. Good thing we tanked up on Conoco Super Unleaded. Outsmarted them again. Yeah. You don't suppose they've been using Conoco Super Unleaded too?
Clean running Conoco Super Unleaded helps keep your engine free from harmful deposits. It also does it for the other guys.
Win valuable prizes. Play Conoco's Cars We Love game. Going on now.
I'm John Balch with Consumer's Choice. I'd like you to listen to what our customers are saying.
I'm Mama Vitale from the Venetian Inn in St. Paul. I know that Consumer's Choice has brought many new customers to our restaurant and the Venetian Inn Playhouse. If you're looking for great food and entertainment, you give Mama a call. If you're looking for advertising that works, you give Consumer's Choice a call.
Consumer's Choice can work for you, so make that call now.
It was one of those days made for a parade, and in northeast Minneapolis tonight, the community was taking advantage of the weather. Tonight's East Side Parade marched up Central Avenue as part of a week-long list of activities called Celebrate Northeast. The parade, which draws thousands of onlookers annually, is one of the state's oldest and largest parades. Other activities in Northeast this week include the coronation of Miss Northeast Thursday night and a carnival that will run through tomorrow.
And finally tonight, the cops in one California town are taking a unique and hip approach to fighting crime. They're souping up their cruisers in an effort to become more accepted by the kids in town. Paul Verkaman reports the lowriders are big hits.
What these guys want, they just want to, to look more like a lowrider than anything else.
The Santa Barbara Police Department's latest experiment in human relations took shape in the George Palomares body shop.
You never thought in your life did you ever do a custom cop car, I mean, you see old Chevys and old Fords and everything else like that, but, police department really threw me on this one.
Then came Judgment Day for the low-down, souped-up 1986 Chevy Caprice.
So how much does it cost you to paint that? How much does it cost the taxpayer? Free. Free? Everything on the car. That's killer. That's great, man. That's the way to go. Now, if you guys could have long hair, everything would be business.
All the parts and labor on the Caprice were donated by people who want to see cops and cruisers drive in harmony.
We're out here promoting safe cruising.
Police believe the car will serve as a pleasant conversation piece, a way to talk with young people about illegal cruising, loitering, drinking, and curfews.
What is that thing?
Police car. Cruisers hope the new car will help police better understand their desires to drive into the night.
Maybe let them see that, okay, they understand where we're coming from, too, and let the police understand where, that we enjoy what we're doing out here. We're not here to cause problems.
We actually can talk and relate to each other rather than them thinking the only time they see a cop is when they're getting the ticket. So it's a lot more fun in a way.
The Cop Cruiser still lacks finishing touches, but the rough and ready version is already winning rave reviews.
That's killer. That's great, man. That's the way to go.
It turned some heads.
They sure did.
Well, we can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm especially tomorrow afternoon, but for the most part, should be a nice day, low humidity, plenty of sunshine, high temperatures, upper 70s with a brisk wind out of the northwest.
Sounds great. All right, Phil, thanks very much.
And thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Gophers fall prey to the high-flying Hawkeyes. Big Ten basketball is next. Live from Carver Hawkeye Arena, it's Big Ten Conference basketball. Tonight, the 10th-ranked Iowa Hawkeyes host the Minnesota Golden Gophers. With Matt McCausland, this is Larry Morgan. The Hawkeyes coming off an opening conference loss, 85-61 at Purdue. And Matt, it's only the second game of the conference season. Does that make this one important for Iowa?
Certainly does for the Iowa Hawkeyes. If you talk to most coaches, they say you've got to protect the home court. In other words, go 9-0 to win the Big Ten championship and split on the road. If you believe in that philosophy, this becomes a must game for the Hawks.
The game in West Lafayette was tied at the half at 37. And Matt, what happened in that second half?
Well, it's kind of like having a bad half day at the office. Of course, they got outscored. It was because of rebounding. The first time the Hawks have been out-rebounded, and you look at the field goal percentage, that did not bode well for the Hawks. They didn't do some of the little things like getting to the free throw line, working off the picks, and getting good open shots.